Everybody doing today? So, Labor Day weekend. Sunday. I'm out at the park. We got that going on here in about a minute. Here in Nampa today. So, for those of you who are interested, definitely come on out. Let's talk politics. Let's talk Idaho. Let's talk America. What are the things that are important to you? So, had an interesting discussion. Was sitting here with a couple individuals. Came in from Portland, of all places. They're looking at moving to Idaho. Talking about some of the riots that were going on there, as well as some of the political issues. What it is they want to do as far as coming, whether they want to continue living there or whether or not something else is going on. But they're coming to Idaho for religious reasons. Reason why is because we have probably some of the most unprecedented religious freedoms in the United States that we continue to practice on a regular basis here in the state of Idaho. And that's particularly interesting. Reason why is because I have friends who are activists with organizations. They're specifically fighting issues about the way religious freedom is practiced in the state of Idaho. Reason why is because we have a group of fundamentalists out here. We call them the followers. And they believe in faith healing. Faith healing to the degree that they will not take a child with a broken bone to a doctor to get the bone reset. Now, this is sort of hit and miss. Some of the followers adhere to the faith healing concept religiously. Yes, I use that word about talking about religion. Yes. And some don't. Some are willing to go out and get the doctors say so, actually get help from a physician on some issues for their children as these develop. But, at what point does religious freedom become child neglect, child abuse? Because we hear and see about it all the time. Catholic Church. Let's take an example right there. Catholic Church. This is one of those areas where what degree does the church, in the separation of church and state, become entitled to behavioral practices that violate state rules, state laws, or even human rights in regards to children? Okay, Catholic Church, prime example. Sexual abuse scandals for decades. And truth is that sort of stuff goes back centuries. The church has been involved. There's always been some sort of ritualistic abuse as part of church policies that goes back and can be traced way back. But it's one of those, it's come to the forefront now, and it's no longer been able to be sheltered. So, what are your thoughts on that? Go ahead. What are your thoughts on religious freedom with regards to abuse of children? Go ahead. Send in the text. I'll go ahead and patch that up. In the meantime, Labor Day weekend. Thank you, Union. Thank the unions. Thank Eugene Debs for Labor Day weekend. Thank Eugene Debs for the 40-hour work week. We got a lot to thank unions for. Aside from just a nice 3-day weekend that we get to enjoy, go out, enjoy barbecue with all of our buddies from the union. AFL-CIO, they probably got themselves another rifle draw this week. Yes. Idaho Union, our AFL-CIO, they get together, they do a drawing on a regular basis, and to help raise funds. Somebody donates a rifle. Everybody pitches in for the draw to see who gets the rifle this month. So when it comes to Idaho, if you're talking gun control, you're not going to get the vote of the union member here in the state. It doesn't work that way. Our union members love their guns, so gun control is a no-go, which is probably part of the reason why Democrats in the state of Idaho don't cater to labor as much as they probably should, because too many would rather go for the money from Moms Demand Action than they would for the money from the Idaho's AFL-CIO. I don't understand why. And you can be pro-union and pro-gun at the same time. I am. I like my local unions. Local electricians, IBEW, love you guys. You guys are awesome out there, actually teaching kids how to earn a living wage without sending them into $40,000 in debt in order to get a bachelor's degree. Unions. Finally coming back in the state, finally coming back, making strides, making huge strides. Now all we need to do is get that right to work legislation from 40 years ago repealed. Thanks, Blue Rogue. Appreciate that. You guys have a good one. Enjoy your weekend. Coffee is definitely done and will be on its way out. Awesome stuff. You guys are doing great stuff out there. But yes, and one of the other fun things is an awful lot of people like to say libertarians aren't pro-union. Oh, dude. That was the Koch Libertarian Party from 10, 15, 20 years ago. Yes, for some reason they thought giving entrepreneurs, particularly large capitalist organizations, heavy capitalist organizations, an edge in the labor market. I mean, if you have to legislate a primacy in a market for it to happen, you're not practicing free market. You're not. Right to work legislation is one of those. Right to work legislation is not an honest free market. It's not, never has been, never will be. Why libertarians ever thought, you know, that right to work legislation was and should be part. Come on, dude, you're a libertarian. Why the hell are you writing more legislation? You know, it's one of the things I never understood about that. You know, you got libertarians saying, I support right to work legislation. Dude, it's a law. So it's a law. Why do you want to write more laws? You know, why do you want to write laws in particular that give an edge to somebody who likes to exploit your neighbor? Yeah, now it is true there are an awful lot of people out there that are exceptional. You know, they can go out, they can negotiate their own wage, they can negotiate their own labor, they can learn at their own rate, so they aren't learning the process through a union. So there are people out there who can do that. There are people out there who do that. You know, but at the same time, unions are about building community. It's about making things work for the community. Because, I mean, the last thing somebody in the community with years of experience and years of talent built up wants to do, you know, after 20 years is get replaced by some 14-year-old kid, you know, who can't do the job. Yeah. Now, legislated right to work is probably some of the most anti-libertarian BS that ever came out of the Koch brother libertarian movement. You don't need legislation for something if it's a good idea. It just happens. So yeah, Eugene Debs. How many people out there actually got nice history lessons with regards to the way politics ran back in 1918? Heck, what was it? World War I, World War II. Yeah, that's when labor movement really became strong. Yeah, that's one of the things. Eugene Debs. He has his pluses and his negatives. He was a movement organizer. He was a coordinator. He was also an ivory tower idealist. He was never labor. He wasn't. Which I think was part of the reason why he never really took off with an awful lot of the concepts once the labor movement started moving. We have an awful lot of people across the United States right now. Awful lot of people who attribute certain things. Eugene Debs, he was a socialist. What that means to an awful lot of people continues to be confusing to me. It really does. To me, union, if you work in a union shop, if you work in a union company, if you work in a collective, you have employees. Winco, we got a great one. We got two companies here that are really big in Boise right now. Winco, that's an employee-owned company. The employees actually own the company. It's not a corporate entity that's being sold on the stock market. It is owned by the employees. Winco makes a profit. The profit gets dispersed among the employees. We have the Boise Co-op. That is actually, it's a co-ownership arrangement. The employees own part of it. The clients, the customers own part of it. They all contribute to the way it works. They all go in, they make votes on the board. So we have different ways of organizing without creating a socialist government where we have all of these voluntarist organizations. And these organizations were created voluntarily. People went into business based on the agreement with the company, whether it's Winco or whether it's the co-op. Union shops where people who work at this particular place have received definitive training specific in order to work in the shop. We have programs like that. We don't anymore. I mean, that's part of what right to work legislation did, is it eliminated that ability of the community, the workers, the employees with a specific skill set to say, hey, look, this is the way we do things. Now, we got other problems with the way unions get ran across the United States. California in particular has a real bad problem with the way their unions manage. International unions, nationwide unions continue to get bad raps, deservedly so, simply because you end up with union managers who have never actually been labor that are dictating policies that they've never participated in. Exactly how does that work? How do you negotiate a wage? How do you negotiate a plan, a product with an organization if you don't understand the job or the career of an individual, that you're negotiating for? So it's where we start hitting that crossover point. Where the crossover point is? At what point do we centralize? At what point do we decentralize? Do we want national organizations? Do we want part-time, do we want localized organizations? That's one of those things, unions. Talk about unions. International Workers, IWW. It's an international. To me, that's too big. It's too centralized. You have this one organization that becomes responsible for these huge, diverse work styles. They're looking at different economies. They're looking at different communities. The people who come in and negotiate have no basis, no understanding of the communities they're negotiating for. In some cases, not even the jobs they're negotiating for. They're just saying, labor gets a certain wage, whether it's skilled labor or not. How much training does it require to actually certify labor for the job they're going to be doing? What should they be getting paid? When you start looking at huge organizations like the AFL-CIO and things like that, you end up with a disconnect. Teamsters Union, you end up with a disconnect. You end up with managers that have no relationship with labor, with the employees. Continues to be a big problem across the United States. Matter of fact, what was it? Earlier this year, back January, last December, ran into a huge issue with regards to that. Thing was Chicago-based union, for a matter of fact. Ended up with about 3 or 4 people that were former executives within one of the labor unions that ended up being arrested for corruption, embezzlement, and all of that fun stuff. So what happens when a union gets too big and the management distances itself too much from the employees? You end up with executives that don't care how much damage they do to communities or employees or even the organization itself when they start pursuing personal interests. Yes. He had like a multi-million-dollar wine cellar or something ridiculous like that. I mean, why are you serving $100,000 bottles of wine at your shindigs? That your union donors aren't part of. Yeah. Corruption, the big thing. It's one of the reasons why people don't trust unions. That's one of the reasons why the big union busting happened back in the 1980s. You let them consolidate, which is why we now have the problem with consolidation, trust fund issues, or trust issues with our major corporations here in the United States. Food. We got 3 corporations that handle all of the food from farm to producers. And that doesn't sound quite right. Reason why is because we know the farms actually produce the food. But from the farm to the people who change the farm food into the shelf-stable stuff that sits in our kitchens, for weeks and months at a time sometimes, from the place that grows it to the place that cans it, we have 3 major corporations that control our food supply chain. Why? I don't know. Why? Barriers to entry. I'm getting back away from my Labor Day weekend special. Because labor, it's about Eugene Debs, right? But yeah. Thank you, union, folks. Take time. Get out there. Show your labor union some love. You live in Idaho? You need to get a hold of Joe. He's the Idaho AFL-CIO president. Tell him next election cycle, you want that ballot initiative out there that's going to repeal right to work in the state of Idaho. Give the union its rule, give the union back its strength. Give the union back its legs so it can accomplish things for the unions in the state of Idaho. Whether that's our locals like the IBEW, one of these days I'm actually going to have to remember which number they are. But no, support unions. Meantime, I'm going to go ahead and call it for the day. We got things going on, kick off here in about another 15 minutes. For those of you who are watching local here in the Boise and the Treasure Valley, I'm out in Nampa right now, out here in Lakeview. Let's go ahead and do this thing here. I got a little ticker tape. Contribute to my campaign. Help me get to Washington, D.C. and fix things here. Fix things for Idaho. Fix things for the United States. Because it's about liberty, folks. It's about life. liberty, the pursuit of happiness, all of which depends on making sure things happen locally, giving you the ability to make your local decisions. So, seeing this, if you're watching this, like, share, comment, definitely like. That increases my showing on the algorithm. Definitely share. That way your friends can see what I have to say so that they understand better what libertarian in the state of Idaho actually means. Like I said again, I'm out here at Lakeview Park in Nampa. I'm out here at the playground. So if you're just off of Garrity, just down from the big old warplane up here on the corner, come on down. Let's talk about America.